Hey folks, welcome to another AR related video. About a month ago, I entered the Nreal AR Jam with a concept for a checkers game for the Nreal Lite and Nreal Air. So this is my project. In my first video, I posted that it was a game, that it was a social game, and I had an idea and pitch statement. So my idea was to create a checkers game to play in MR mode using Unity tutorials found on the internet to self-teach myself how to build a checkers game to deploy in the Nreal Lite's MR mode. And eventually, I added this sort of concept art of what it would look like. So you've got the checkers board with all the checkers, and then the Nreal controller off to the side here. Um, that's not really what ended up happening. So I made a prototype that worked, and the concept of this was that I wanted to have the ability to have multiplayer across multiple devices. So that multi-platform multiplayer meant that when I built this, I built it for PC, focused on tutorials related around building for PC, and then adapted it for Android, and then was hoping to adapt it to the Nreal Lite. So the initial concept sort of worked in my prototype phase. So as you can see, you can move the checkers. We've got the white checker moving. Um, but when you're in headsets, because of the way that the camera is positioned with the Nreal Lite, it's actually you're the camera with the AR glasses on. So when I had the glasses on, I was literally in the center of the checkerboard. So you can see this is a through the lens photo. Giant white checkers, depending on which way I looked, it would be either giant white checkers or giant black checkers. I did create a very, very short YouTube video that was about 8 seconds of me just moving a checker on the checkerboard just to demonstrate that's kind of the concept of what I was going for. My prototype was playable as a pass and play game within Unity for a basic checkers with the rules for basic checkers move set with black set of pieces versus white set of pieces with an is white toggle. I built that about 5 or 6 steps into the tutorials I was following. That's where I was at the prototype phase. And I still needed to build a function that changes the turns and recognizing who goes first and who goes second and things of that nature. So in the glasses, I was able to deploy the project and view a giant checkers board, but lots of work would need to be done before the final build. I was happy though with my initial project prototype. So now we're going to switch gears. This was the second part of the build. The third part of the build, did I actually succeed? Let's find out. So this is the PC version of checkers. What we've got here is a hot seat mode so that we can play 2 players where you're changing turns. So if I play a white checker, then a black checker, you can see it's got an indicator when I want to use a turn to jump. So if I do this, we're just going to quickly go through a full game of checkers. Should not take very long because I'm playing against myself. I do want to make sure at least one of these pieces gets to the king, so we're going to move this way, make a clear path. For one of these to become the king. There we go. So we've got a black king now. So all these animations and things were built into the project that I built. It was not an original project, obviously, because I was just learning how to do this. But again, the concept was to build it so that it would work multi-platform in an AR or standalone capacity. So as I move the checkers, I'm going to try to kill off the white set here quickly. Let's move this one, jump that one, and then move this one. Move this one again. We'll close in. There we go. So the black team is won. That'll take us back out to the hot seat connect and host mode. You can actually enter a player name here, and if I connect, then you'd enter the IP address of the hosting player. If I was hosting, it would tell you what the hosting player's information is. We're going to exit out of that. So clearly I was able to get a PC version up and running. I was also able to get the Android version up and running. Alright, so we've got Checkers for Android here. Go ahead and launch that. And again, you see the hot seat, connect, and host modes. Those all do work. If we hit hot seat again, you can see very same gameplay as the PC version had, except again optimized for my Android device. So I'm using a touch screen and controlling the checkers using swipes. So essentially now we've got two different devices to do the multiplayer. I'm ready to go build and deploy into the Nreal Lite headset. And I did indeed create a checkers for Nreal that I also deployed to my phone, and it didn't work. So what happened? When I was deploying the application, the camera has to be transitioned in a specific way. Because the player itself is the camera, what I was doing was adjusting with a transform, making a game object that represented that player that then repositioned the camera. When I repositioned the camera, using the phone as a controller, it was showing that checkerboard a good 40 meters away or 4 meters away, depending on how the units actually work, I'm not sure. But too far for the ray casting that happens from the phone controller, that's basically like a laser shooting out from the phone to select the game pieces. And so I couldn't figure out the way around that without basically taking apart and rebuilding the whole checkers game. I thought it was going to be a simple project where you take a project, learn how to build that project, and then just retool it for the other devices. And that worked from the PC to the Android build. But when I was building for Nreal, because of the way the Nreal Lite handles inputs and the way that AR itself handles cameras and things of that nature, I unfortunately was not able to get a fully working deployed product. Again, going into my final build process here, the game is indeed called Checkers for Unreal. I was able to supply functional APKs, but unfortunately not fully working APKs for both the Android version and the Nreal Lite version. And I also included the PC version, so if people wanted to play cross-platform checkers, if the judges want to play the game, they certainly can. I wasn't indeed inspired by this AR Jam to learn a bit more about Unity development, and I was mostly successful in creating a multiplayer checkers game following online tutorials. I made functional builds for PC and Android, which you've just seen, but unfortunately ran into some traps when integrating into the Nreal SDK. My inexperience with Unity showed I am not really a game developer, but I've now created a game, so maybe I am. Um, but I was able to get the hot seat, connect, and host menu working the same way that it does on Android, and I was happy about that because I was able to get it working before the phone as controller comes up. That was kind of crucial for me because the phone as controller, then you have to figure out a keyboard to enter an input and output and have an actual menu. Having the menu before it pops into MR mode worked awesome, and I was super happy to discover how to do that. I was able to get the checkerboard to render and deploy the checker pieces. So the checkers are each individual objects that are kind of built in using separate game objects with separate code behind them. So having them deploy properly on the checkerboard as I intended was actually harder than you would potentially think. But the camera position tricks and experience with the NR input system, which is that laser coming from the phone, made it so that I simply didn't have enough time in the 30 days that were allotted for this to adapt and learn what I needed to do to rebuild and retool the project for the Nreal Light headset and the Nreal Air. It was a great learning experience going through this project, and I'm happy that I participated, and I hope that when it comes time for the judging period, which at the time that I'm recording this, it is literally the morning of the day that this is all due. So when I hit save, it's going, and I'm not really going to be able to modify it again. But I was excited to make this project because I learned how to make something in Unity that was actually more than just previously I'd made a world globe that displays in the Nreal Light, and I can go into that Unity project and I can change borders and I can change country names and things of that nature, and I thought that was really cool. But it was just kind of a standalone thing. Like, you can put on glasses and see the globe in front of you. Having a functional product which has actual game mechanics and being able to deploy that into multiple platforms, I'm pretty excited about what I've accomplished, even though, again, I was mostly following tutorials, and I'll link, I think there's probably 8 different resources I used to build this, even though the heart of it was a checkers game project that I did absolutely have to adapt to even make it function on PC. I don't know, there were some steps missing there that I had to figure out how to do myself. But unfortunately, I don't have a working checkers game that you could deploy on your Nreal Light at the current time. I don't know if I'll go back to this because it's actually a lot of pressure and kind of nerve-wracking. I'm not really a developer. I absolutely have always had a great appreciation for what developers do when they're building games and applications, because it is a lot of hard work. But I now even have even greater appreciation for those building for AR and VR, because taking that perspective of you are now the camera in these scenes is something I hadn't really anticipated being as big of a challenge as it is. And in addition to that, you also have to account for things like if you have fast moving objects or you're trying to move that player character through a scene, you also have to account for things like motion sickness and other things. While that was always in the back of my mind while I was playing VR experiences or AR experiences, I hadn't realized the challenge that's there when you're building that project out. So this is a huge, huge thing for me, and I'm really glad that I did participate. Wasn't fully successful, but I've got a game I can play on my phone and my PC, despite it not necessarily working in AR, and I can look at a really pretty checkerboard with checkers on it if I want to put it on my headset as well. I want to say thank you to all the developers who worked on products for the AR Jam. I'm looking forward to playing some of those products. I know that I think it's in here now. I'm going to go ahead and save my project here. But I think there's a gallery, yeah, project gallery here coming soon. And that project gallery is kind of going to be the key to exploring other people's projects. So I am excited to try that. I've actually helped test some people's code that had built that didn't have glasses recently, so I'm excited to see their projects when they're fully fleshed out and see other projects as well, and see what people have built and explore those projects in AR on the Nreal Light. I tried to make mine so that it would work with the Nreal Light and Nreal Air, and maybe that was a problem. Maybe I should have gone with that giant checkerboard with a 6-DoF mode, and then it would have been easier to manipulate, but I wanted to make it something that would work for both. I focused on that, and unfortunately I wasn't fully successful. But again, really rewarding for me to be able to participate, and I'm excited to see what other developers have brought to the table. Thanks also to Nreal and the other folks that are helping to judge and things of that nature as part of this particular Nreal AR Jam project. This was a lot of fun. And it took a good chunk of time, but I learned a lot from this experience, so I'm excited to maybe one day uh, build something of my own. I like the fact that I was able to follow along with the project and adapt for my own needs from it. Um, I don't think I'm going to go into development full time or even as a hobbyist, but it was interesting and it was a very cool experience. Looking forward to checking out what others have brought to the table. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye now.